Good morning. It is 10 a.m. Friday, November 8th, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I just counted 64 earthquakes in the Ventura area of Southern California outside of Los Angeles. 64 earthquakes in the last 24 hours, not even 24 hours. We've got magnitudes as high as 3.7. 3.6, 3.2, 3.4, 3.4, 2.7, 2.9, 2.9, and a lot of earthquake activity here in Southern California. And this is the type of activity that I believe is going to lead to a major earthquake pop in Southern California. I don't think we're done, folks. I don't think this whole July 4th and July 5th large earthquake event and all these aftershock events in Ridgecrest, I don't think we're done, folks. I think there's going to be more activity. And looks like there was another earthquake that just popped. That's the 2.7 I just talked about. That's within the last hour. We've got to be on watch. And let's just keep our eyes out today. Now's a good time to make sure the batteries in your flashlights are fully charged or fresh. And let's see what's going on. I mean, that's just pressure here in Southern California. I kind of want to look out beyond that area. So let's I want to do 2.5. Let's do the last 7 days. Let's look at the pressure that's coming into California here, if I can. Goodness gracious. Okay. So I think we're going to be getting dumped with even more energy because this earthquake was a 4.9 in Alaska and a 4.7 yesterday. So there's going to be some pressure coming in right along these plate boundaries here. You see this red line? And then right here you've got the Juan de Fuca fault. So I think what's actually going on with this Juan de Fuca fault, when you zoom out and you look at all these earthquakes on the Ring of Fire that are large, and then you see there's kind of like a silent zone here. And even if you filter out to large earthquakes over a long period of time, this area on the west, Pacific Northwest and the west coast of the USA tends to be pretty silent in any massive earthquake activity. I mean, you get a 7 here and there, 7.1, 7.2, even over the last 100 years. I mean, the highest you've seen is maybe a 7.9, which is a massive earthquake, don't get me wrong. But compared to the rest of the Ring of Fire, it's actually the small activity is actually off the west coast of the USA. So I think what's going on here is this Juan de Fuca is the remnants of an old tectonic plate that has subducted underneath the United States. That's the Farallon plate, which is broken up into many fragments, including a fragment down here, the Nazca plate down here in South America. So you've got some broken plates that have subducted underneath here. And I think that is affecting the major quake activity. Now, when I say the things that I say, of course, I want to provide news and I want to provide research. So news and research is going to be based on what geologists, seismologists, volcanologists they've proposed, demonstrated, tested, had peer reviewed, and it's been validated within the scientific community. That would be, I think, newsworthy. That would be something that I can present and say without a shadow of a doubt, this is true. These are the prevailing norms in science. And sometimes I'll get into my opinion-based information, which is I'm observing the Juan de Fuca plate here, and I see earthquake energy coming in, and I see there is activity on the entire Ring of Fire, but then it goes a little bit silent here and a little bit silent there, and then I try to fill in with my observation on what I believe is happening. And so I had a commenter on one of my videos that was like, well, who told you you could say that? And, you're not a seismologist or volcanologist. And, there was some snarky comment. And so this is the purpose of my clarification. I want you to know. There are times I'm going to be presenting news that has been demonstrated or experiments through peer review studies that will validate certain observations. And then for me, I can take that information and then apply my own intuition. So, for example, a antipode. I could take the largest earthquake here, which this is a 6.5 in Fiji. I can find out the antipode of that, and then I could say, okay, I'm expecting a 5.1 or 5.0 to hit at the exact antipode location. Why can I do that? Because antipode research has been conducted and has been proven from some University of Oregon researchers and other collaborators they've demonstrated for over the course of many years that it is very likely that an antipode earthquake does hit. So I can know that and then apply that science into my observation. However, right here, if we know that this Juan de Fuca plate here, if we know that this is actively subducting underneath the Pacific Northwest, Northern California on up to Vancouver Island, including Washington and Oregon, if we know that it's actively subducting, and then you can do research and find out that the San Andreas Fault is a plate boundary that formed after the other part of this Juan de Fuca plate known as the Farallon plate, after it already subducted itself, that San Andreas in prehistoric times may have been a subduction zone as well, and it turned into a strike slip fault, which is a convergent boundary right here. And so it's not actively subducting here, okay? But it is subducting up north. But if you take into account the fact that there's this subducting plate right here underneath California, Oregon, Washington, Vancouver, British Columbia, possibly Utah, possibly all the way out here, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, it's possible that it is doing that. It may be changing some of this earthquake energy. And so I think that may be a little bit of why we haven't had the major earthquake activity off the coast of California, Oregon, and Washington. But be that as it may, to get back into Southern California, what do I think is going to happen? I'll do a video in the future about the Farallon plate, but for right now, we have more immediate concerns. We have an outbreak of at least 64 earthquakes here in Ventura. You see when I zoom in, these are over 2.5, but still, we have an outbreak of 64 earthquakes and counting here in Ventura. And I think what's going to happen is one of these other faults in Southern California, it's going to put some strain on one of these faults, and something is probably going to pop. So we just have to make sure that we are on the watch for that. If your batteries are low, your flashlight batteries are low, replace them. If you need gas in your car, it might be a good idea to fill up the tank before you go to bed tonight. And top off anything you need to do. I wouldn't drain my bank account. I wouldn't go run up my credit cards. I wouldn't do anything extreme, but do the basics and make sure you contact a few close ones. Make sure that your contact information is active. And write the most important contacts down on an index card and carry it with you in case you lose your cell phone battery and you can't charge temporarily. I would do things like that, okay? And of course, don't rely on tap water if you're a tap water drinker. I have a friend that I grew up with who experienced a 1994 earthquake, and they were tap water drinkers. I always thought that was odd. I always had filtered water from, Sparklets or Arrowhead, but they were tap water drinkers, and they were adamant about it. And they said, "Oh, it's water safe. It's fine." I said, "Okay, I get it." 1994 earthquake popped, Northridge, and their local stores, most of them were closed, and because there was no power, they didn't have power for about a week. And the local store that did actually open up after the quake, they were selling a gallon of water for, I think he told me $45 a gallon or $55 per gallon. So they ended up having to drive out to Palm Springs to find a place that had power and get water at a reasonable rate. So I'm sure there were places in Southern California that were selling it, but they had family in Palm Springs. So in any case, you don't want to be the one trying to buy water for $55 a gallon. So that's the moral of that story. But right now, I got to put us on a earthquake watch in SoCal for 72 hours. There's energy for a big earthquake. Hopefully it doesn't happen. All right? Take care of yourself and your loved ones.